The 2017 NFL Draft was loaded with talent, and in today's video we will be grading picks 1 through 16. If you are interested in picks 17 through 32, the link will be at the end of today's video, and the sheer talent from this class will be evident early and often, and there will be several high draft grades in today's video. As always, we will be going in reverse order, so we will start with the selection of Ravens corner Marlon Humphrey, and finish with the selection of Browns pass rusher Myles Garrett. And with 16 picks to dive into, let's begin. Marlon Humphrey was the Ravens' first-round pick in 2017, and he is still their number one corner today. He is a very, very good player, and a lot of the time you hear how Marlon could have played in any era, and it's true. He's a great player, he's not afraid to tackle, and forced an absurd 8 fumbles back in 2020. He is a 3-time Pro Bowler with a first-team All-Pro coming back in 2019 and has 12 career interceptions to his name. This was one of the last picks general manager Ozzie Newsome made, and he loves selecting players from Alabama, and Marlon has more than proved he was worth the first-round pick. He was drafted young and will play this season at just 27 years old, and it's very possible we see Marlon become a 5- or 6-time Pro Bowl player, and this is an A draft grade. Malik Hooker, the safety from Ohio State, went number 15 to Indy, and unfortunately his time there was plagued by injury. In 4 years, he played in just 36 games and never played in a full season. He's since played 2 seasons in Dallas, and in 2 seasons there, has played in 31 of 34 possible games, but remember, this is a grade of Indy selection. I thought Malik was a very talented player for Indy, and unfortunately had bad injury luck, and we never got to see him live up to his potential. And this is a tale as old as time, but the best ability in the NFL is availability, and playing in 36 of 64 possible games is disappointing. I realize that's nobody's fault as injuries happen, but 6 years later, the Malik Hooker pick gets a C- grade. Derek Barnett, the pass rusher from Tennessee, is up, and Barnett has played 64 games over the span of 6 seasons, and most recently tore his ACL at the beginning of the 2022 season. So, taking 2022 out of the equation, Barnett has 21.5 sacks in roughly 5 years, with games missed here and there. And for as big of an advocate of GM Howie Roseman as I've been for quite a while now, I was never a fan of this pick as he was slow for his size and never panned out the way you envision a first-round pass rusher. He has 3 seasons of at least 5 sacks with a career high of 6.5 back in 2019 and had just 2 sacks in 16 games during the 2021 season. He started 45 games, which is a lot better than you'll see from other players in today's video, but this was not a hit by any means, a C grade. Haason Reddick, the Arizona Cardinal, is not the same Haason Reddick we know today, and this will factor into the draft grade. The Cardinals did not maximize what Reddick could do as a player until his 4th year in the NFL, and in his 4th and final year with the Cardinals, all he did was have 12.5 sacks and 6 forced fumbles. And over the last 3 years between time in Arizona, Carolina, and of course Philly, Reddick has 39.5 sacks and 13 forced fumbles. But in 4 years in Arizona, he started just 31 games out of 64 he played in, which is insane to think about, and remember, Reddick did have a great final year in Arizona, so we do factor that in and give this a C+. Deshaun Watson went from beating Alabama in the national championship to being the Texans' first-round pick, and after tearing his ACL midway through his rookie season, he had 3 good seasons with the Texans in what were 3 straight Pro Bowl years, culminating in a 4,800-yard, 33 passing touchdown 2020 season. I know the off the field is obviously going to be talked about in the comments with Deshaun, and there's no way around it or avoiding it, but from a football standpoint, the Texans got a good 3.5 seasons out of him and received 3 first-round picks. So factoring everything in, drafting a player in the middle of the first round and getting this type of haul back, and please keep in mind this is from a football standpoint, but for the Texans it's an A+ grade. Marshon Lattimore won the 2017 Defensive Rookie of the Year award and notched his first of what would become 4 Pro Bowls, and he could still add to that total by the way. But Marshon was a part of a legendary draft class for the Saints and in 6 years has 14 interceptions, including 2 pick sixes, and has been a great corner for New Orleans. Marshawn's best year ended up being his rookie year, and I was kind of surprised to not see him earn at least a second-team All-Pro that year, as you can make the argument he very easily could have, but he's been a great player for the Saints for over half a decade now, and was 100% worth the number 11 overall pick, in A grade. The Chiefs traded up to get quarterback Patrick Mahomes, and I debated on just putting a picture of him up with a letter grade and moving on to the next pick. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion, a two-time Super Bowl MVP, a two-time regular season MVP, and this has all been accomplished before his 28th birthday. He could retire today and be a Hall of Famer, and he's only started for 5 seasons because 2017 was a redshirt year for him. You guys have heard how good he is for half a decade now, and we've seen all of his big moments, and the Chiefs could win 3 Super Bowls in a span of 5 years if they win it this year. There's 9 more players to grade, so we will move on from Patrick Mahomes, but I think we all know what grade is coming. A+. What a difference back-to-back picks make as we transition from Patrick Mahomes to John Ross. John Ross has not played a game since the 2021 regular season and was 4 years and out with the Cincinnati Bengals. He famously ran a 4.22 40 during the Combine, breaking Chris Johnson's 4.24 40 from back in 2008. And in 4 years with the Bengals, he caught just 51 passes for 733 yards and 10 touchdowns. This may be a surprise, but he did haul in 7 touchdowns in 2018, which is pretty unexpected for a player that's universally deemed a draft bust. This does not make the Ross pick a hit or anything, but hauling in 7 touchdowns on just 21 receptions was noteworthy. He only had 123 targets in Cincy and caught just 41.5% of his targets, and when you cannot consistently get open or catch passes, which is your job, it's going to be tough at the NFL level, an F grade. Christian McCaffrey went number 8 to the Panthers, and this is tricky to grade for a few reasons. Drafting a running back in the top 10 is always frowned upon by the media, but CMC was, and is for that matter, an offensive weapon. He did have an injury-plagued 2020 and 2021, but during his time in Carolina, he racked up over 7,200 yards of offense along with 50 total touchdowns. And within this, he tacked on 2 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros, and a 3rd-place finish in the Offensive Player of the Year back in 2019. And unlike a lot of running back trades we see, he brought back 4 picks in a trade with the 49ers that took place during the middle of the 2022 season. I think if you told the Panthers 6 years ago what the production from him would be, they would be thrilled, and factoring everything in, we give this an A grade. Mike Williams is a good receiver, and 6 years later, he's totaled nearly 300 receptions for over 3,600 yards and 26 touchdowns. He has 2 1,000-yard years for the Chargers, and I think this is a case of talent outweighing what you see on the stat sheet, because you can certainly make the case for a top 7 pick that Mike Williams in some ways has been underwhelming. He has just 1 season above 70 receptions and has just 1 season with 10 or more touchdowns, and it's not like the quarterback play has been bad for him throughout his career either. I like Williams a lot as a player, and it certainly wouldn't surprise me if he went for 1,200 or more yards in a year, or even 12 touchdowns for that matter, and this grade is a B. Jamal Adams is a 3-time Pro Bowler and a 3-time All-Pro safety, and it was a bit of a surprise he fell to number 6 overall, right into the hands of the New York Jets. I will get ahead of the grade now and say it's going to be spicy and to prepare yourself, but the Jets got 2 Pro Bowls and 2 All-Pros out of him and flipped him at the right time, and I mean the right time. He was traded to Seattle, and the 2 first-round picks they gave up eventually turned into Elijah Vera-Tucker, a future Pro Bowl offensive lineman, and 2022 Rookie of the Year, Garrett Wilson. And when you factor everything into this draft pick, from the Pro Bowls and All-Pros Jamal had with the Jets into the 2022 Rookie of the Year, all from the number 6 overall pick way back in 2017, guys, I have no problem giving this an A+ grade. Corey Davis, the receiver from Western Michigan, went number 5 to Tennessee, and this pick did not pan out the way they envisioned. He is now a member of the New York Jets, and during his time in Nashville, he hauled in 207 passes for 2,800 yards and 11 touchdowns. His best year was in a contract year in 2020 after the Titans did not pick up his fifth-year option, in which he caught 65 passes for 984 yards and 5 touchdowns, then cashed in with the Jets in free agency. There's been worse receivers drafted in the first round and ultimately the top 10 of the draft, but this selection was never a good one and to date has just 17 career touchdowns. We give some credit for 2 800+ yard seasons, but overall a disappointing pick and a C- grade. Leonard Fournette, the highly touted running back from LSU, was taken number 4 by the Jags, and in his time in Jacksonville, he rushed for 2,600 yards and 17 touchdowns. He added another 1,009 yards receiving and was a big part of their 2017 success as they ran the ball and played good defense, earning them the nickname Saxonville. This does not justify a top 5 pick on a running back, and especially when factoring in how their relationship ended. The Jags wanted to trade him prior to the 2020 season and could not find a trade partner, so they flat out released him. Fournette had been hyped as the guy since high school and was even dubbed the next Adrian Peterson, and did not live up to being the number 4 overall pick, a C grade. We mentioned Solomon Thomas during last week's video as the 49ers had 2 first-round picks in 2017, along with linebacker Reuben Foster. And grading the Solomon Thomas pick is not going to be a fun trip down memory lane for 49ers fans, as in 4 years he played 48 games, while starting just 30 of them, and had a total of 73 tackles. He had just 6 sacks during his time in the Bay Area, and his best year as a 49er was as a rookie back in 2017, as he totaled 41 tackles and had 3 sacks. Obviously, this was not what the team envisioned when they were on the clock at number 3 overall, and I truly thought they were going to take Mitch Trubisky at number 2, but they traded back to allow the Bears to get Mitch, and 6 years later, the Solomon Thomas draft grade gets an F. Mitch Trubisky, the quarterback from North Carolina, went number 2 to the Bears, and I think a misconception with Mitch is that yes, he was disappointing as a number 2 overall pick, but Mitch was never outright awful or comparable to the all-time busts like Ryan Leaf or Jamarcus Russell. Yes, he was disappointing, and I'm not shying away from that, but having one of the best quarterbacks of all time drafted 8 picks later only magnifies this selection 100 times, and if Mitch was in the 2016 class, for example, with Goff, Wentz, and even Paxton Lynch later in the first round, it would not be as big of a deal to the media as it was and is made out to be. So this grade is not an F, as Mitch was a game manager with the Bears, but again, he was not outright awful. 6 years later, we give this a D+. In 6 years, Myles Garrett has 74.5 sacks and is working on 5 straight double-digit sack seasons, including back-to-back seasons of 16 sacks. Myles was viewed as a can't-miss prospect coming out of Texas A&M, and this was everything the Browns envisioned and more when they were on the clock from the months of January through April of 2017. They knew they were getting a good football player. The only question was, how good of a football player? And speaking out loud, there's a very good chance Myles makes 4 or 5 more Pro Bowls, finishes his career with 125 sacks or even more, considering he is already at 74.5, and becomes a Hall of Famer. He is a physical freak, and guys, he's already a 4-time All-Pro, an A+ grade. And that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world and help the growth of the channel tremendously. My Patreon and Twitter links are in the description if you'd like to support the channel, and until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.